Finally, after a long time of preparations, it was time for our journey to Moshi in Tanzania. The flight to Moshi took 11 hours. The thoughts and expectations before the trip were many. What does the school look like? How do they work in the workshop? What are people like in Tanzania? Will it be very hot? How does the food taste? And so on.
Betonggolv. Ja. Har ni sängarna? Det är ingenting man vill ha med. Min säng. Jag kan väl ligga i fosterställning om man ska få plats med halva kroppen.
Tired and exhausted after a long flight, we finally arrived at the hostel where we would stay for 2 weeks. At first, when we saw the simple and different toilets and showers, we got a bit worried. But the hostel turned out to be the perfect place. The food tasted good, the staff were really nice, and we had access to a great garden where we shared many wonderful times together.
Teachers from LEDARE. It is with this great pleasure to welcome you to Tanzania, and particularly Moshi Rvtsc to the second time. On the process of continuing with our joint project, we hope you had a safe and enjoyable safari on the way from Sweden to Tanzania.
Our exchange school, Rvtsc, is a vocational school with 16 programs. They have about 500 students and 30 teachers. The period of training is 2 years. The student fee, that is paid by the parents, is 90,000 Tanzanian shilling per year. The school is mostly financed by the student fee, companies who sponsor the school, tax reduction from the government, and sales of products the students make on the school.
So they come here starting from the fresh. When they come here, we do them.
Most of the schools in Tanzania are boarding schools, and so is Rvtsc. The students only visit their home a few times during the school year. Boys and girls live in separate buildings on the school ground. It's the students' responsibility to make sure the building and their rooms are nice and clean. They do their own laundry and also make minor reparations.
remember that one.
This one, compass of question, number 1.
Our exchange project also included discussing questions concerning education, the structure of the society, similarities and differences between our cultures, etc. By discussing these matters, sometimes with the whole class together, but mostly in smaller groups, we got answers to our questions.
And the weather. And I agree with what you said that for a while maybe I could consider living here. Maybe a couple of years or years, but not forever.
Is it hard to understand us? No. We understand what you say.
What do you do?
Not all.
Some things.
Okay. Is it difficult words or just bad English? Difficult words.
Should we go through all these questions one by one? And we'll just get some. Yes.
And people are more friendly and nicer than Swedish people are. And so 3 of us would consider living here for a while, a year or 2.
We like the company in Sweden, but Sweden is a bit too cold.
As I said, I think it's too hot to stay here and visit for a longer time, but because I like the Swedish winter too.
During our stay in Moshi, we did some study visits. For example, we saw a state general hospital. First, we listened to a lecture about AIDS and HIV. Then, we got an interesting guided tour on the hospital area. The hospital had around 600 beds. Despite long waiting lines and the fact that it was crowded outside the doctors' waiting rooms, the atmosphere was relaxed. When we visited the sugar refinery TPC, Tanganyika Planners Company, which is owned by the Tanzanian government and a big concern on Mauritius, we were surprised to see how good arrangements the company has made for their employees. It took almost 1 hour to go by bus through the enormous sugarcane plantations. Before we arrived to the factory itself, we saw a church, a cottage hospital and a kindergarten, made only for TPC's 2,500 employees. The workers had relatively good salaries. The sugar canes grind into fiber. The fiber is squeezed to a brown sludge. Out of that they make syrup. Then they turn it into sugar crystals, add lime, boil it, and in the end centrifuge it. Now the sugar is ready to be packed.
Nej, vi har varit här. Vi var ute på sockerbröd igår till piscin. Sen har vi varit lite...
Ja, men den är om du jämför, ja. Den är fulla så. Du börjar nästan få en lillgurkepanna. Den har 2 hål.
During our visit in the national parks, right between the Ngorongoro crater and Serengeti, we saw a historical place called Oldepai Gorge. In 1911, they found one of our first human ancestors right here. In the museum just nearby the outlook over Oldepai Gorge was an exhibition showing how excavations were done back in 1911. It also showed ancient animal skeletons and a description of the human evolution.